Hello and welcome to our annual general meeting, live from Leverkusen, Germany. I am Marlene, Social Media Manager at Covestro. Our Chairman of the Supervisory Board, Dr. Richard Pott, will kick off this year's annual general meeting very soon. During the event, our Board of Management will speak about our fiscal 2023 results and give a brief outlook on the remaining months of this year. So, stay tuned, the event will start shortly.
Dr. Horst Dreyer, Board of Management responsible for technology, and our Labor Director. A vast majority of the Supervisory Board is here on site in Leverkusen, although according to our Articles of Incorporation, at a virtual AGM, it's also possible for members of the Supervisory Board to attend virtually. In person, we have the following members of the Supervisory Board: Dr. Christoph Görtler, the Deputy Chair of the Supervisory Board, Petra Cronin, Frank Löhlgen, Petra Reinhold Knappe, and Dr. Sven Schneider. Joining us virtually, we have the following members of the Supervisory Board: Dr. Christina Bortenlänger, Lisa Kingo, Irena Küstner, Regina Stachelhaus, Mark Stotfang, and Patrick Thomas. They are at other locations or even abroad. The members of the Supervisory Board who are here in person are not up on the podium with me and the rest of the Board of Management for lack of space, but they are in the attendance area and can contact us at any time. The Supervisory Boards who are here, members who are here, and those who are joining us online will be shown every now and again during the AGM so that you, our shareholders, can see them. We also see the proxies, Ina Moritz and Dr. Martin Belleur. Both of them were appointed by the company. The entire AGM will be transmitted for our shareholders who have registered, as well as for their representatives, by audio and video through our investor portal. Shareholders and the public at large can also follow the entire AGM on our website. A number of social media channels will also be transmitting our AGM, but this will be only until and including the speeches by the Board of Management. The technical requirements for this live transmission were carefully checked together with our external service providers. We have also taken into account experiences from last year with some unexpected technical obstacles. And that is why we assume that today's virtual AGM will run smoothly from a technical point of view. The Notary Public has also been explained all the technical details of this transmission, and he has familiarized himself with all these measures. Ladies and gentlemen, the invitation to today's virtual AGM was published in the Federal Gazette on the 6th of March 2024, together with the agenda and the draft resolutions from the Board of Management and Supervisory Form in due form and in due time. The documents are with the Notary Public, who will include them in the record. Prior to the AGM, we did not receive any motions to add items to the agenda, nor did we receive any counter-proposals or election proposals. The company has received 3 statements which were published in due time in the investor portal and on our website. Since the invitation was sent out or published on the 6th of March 2024, all of the required documents and information were available on Covestro AG's website. The documents will remain there for the duration of our virtual AGM. And a copy of all of these requirements are here in this meeting room with the Notary Public, Dr. Hermans. Ladies and gentlemen, so that you can ask your questions based on current and comprehensive information, we decided to publish the speeches by the CEO and the CFO, as well as my own speech 1 week prior to the AGM. These were published on the company's website. And for the virtual AGM, we are also keeping a list of participants as required by law. Here you will see the company's proxies, as well as the shareholders who are represented with their share portfolios. These are all listed on the list of participants, and we have also included the shareholders who are following us virtually via the investor portfolio. The list of participants is available here in the meeting room, and it can also be viewed in our investor portal. It will be updated whenever necessary. I will announce the attendance figures later on during the course of our AGM. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders who registered in due time and due form were able to exercise their voting rights prior to the AGM, either by means of absentee ballot or by instructing and authorizing the company's proxies. During the virtual AGM, it is also possible to use our investor portal in the Internet to cast an electronic vote or to give instructions. The possibility to authorize the company's proxies and to give them instructions will be available until the beginning of the vote. You will have the possibility to vote. The investor portal will continue somewhat longer, in other words, until I, the chair of the AGM, have concluded the vote. Let's now turn to the votes. When we come to the vote, I will explain this to you once again in detail. At this point, I would like to call upon you to cast your votes at an early point in time, and information on how to cast your vote can be found in the invitation and also on Covestro's website. Ladies and gentlemen, You will have the possibility to use our investor portal. You have a button in the main menu to ask for the floor. I will explain this to you later on, as well as the most important information as to the content of your contributions and the formal process we will be using for our discussion today. First of all, on the content, please structure your contribution as if you were at an on-site annual general meeting. Only refer to agenda items and optionally to the bylaws, and please do not digress to unrelated items. I would also like to ask you to be brief in the interest of all of the shareholders who also would like to take the floor. As a guideline, I would say 10 minutes should suffice. I would like to make it clear that this is not a formal restriction in your speaking time. It's just a non-binding request. I would be very grateful, however, if in the interest of all participants, you could stick to the guideline of 10 minutes. And to help you out here, we will have a clock showing you how long everyone has been speaking. As chair of the AGM, I have to see to it that our AGM is carried out in accordance with the legal requirements. And this means that the speaking time can be officially restricted if during the course of our AGM this appears to be necessary, especially with regard to the number of requests for the floor that have not been dealt with yet. Today's discussion will be a type of general discussion, as you're familiar with from in-person AGMs. You will also have the possibility to discuss all agenda items, and you don't have to ask for the floor separately for different agenda items. As chairman of the AGM, I am also called upon to decide how your questions should be directed to us today. In the invitation, this was indicated, and now I have decided that questions can only be made via video transmission. If you would like to ask any questions, please register using our investor portal and then make use of this to either speak or to ask questions or both. And in the same way, you will have to ask for the floor if you wish to submit a motion during the AGM, either at the item in hand or with regard to the bylaws, or if you want to submit an election proposal. When asking for the floor in the investor portal, you can also indicate that you would like to submit a motion. I would be grateful if you did so that I can then check and decide if your motion should be given priority when giving you the floor. Requesting the floor is possible at all times. This has been possible since 9:30 this morning, as indicated in the invitation to the AGM. I would like to say one more thing with regard to today's AGM. We know that you have a great deal of interest in the discussions between Covestro and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. Rest assured, the Board of Management will deal with this in line with the requirements of the Stock Corporation Law. This will be done constructively and openly, also in the interest of our company and in your interest, as well as in the interest of all other shareholders. The Board of Management has kept the Supervisory Board informed at all times and coordinates closely with them as usual. Of course, the progress and the result of such discussions will depend on the capability of both parties to come to an agreement on issues where they are of different opinion. Now, the company here will also report on the results of the discussions, also in line with our obligations with regard to the European Market Abuse Directive. And I would also like to mention that we, in the interest of the company and all shareholders, will also have to say that we cannot give you any further information on the status of these discussions and the content of these discussions. I hope that you can understand that. And now I'd like to give you a few more details on the technical procedure for requesting the floor and on our general discussion. When asking for the floor, you will be put on our list of speakers. The speakers on the list will then be divided up into groups of a maximum of 5 individuals. The first individuals will then be called out, and we will mention their name, and I will ask you then to be ready for a technical test for your audio and visual transmission. We will then interrupt the AGM for about 5 minutes before we begin the general discussion. And during this period, our technical time will then carry out the technical test with the speakers who have been called up. And then I will call up the speakers one after the other. They will be given the floor, and then they will then be transmitted live by video, and they will also be visible to the shareholders and to the public at large in the AGM. They will hear and see you. We will collect questions from you and prepare the answers. And at the end of the last contribution, we will then begin with a round of answers. After that, the next speakers will be called up, and we will repeat the same procedure until all of the speakers have been able to take the floor and until all of the questions have been asked and all of the answers have been given. Please be patient. If perhaps not all of the questions are answered directly with your contribution, some of the questions might be answered at a later point in time. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention one more thing, and that is that from the beginning until the end of this event, that means until the AGM is concluded by myself as the chairman, you can submit objections with regard to the resolutions taken at the AGM. There's an appropriate button for this in the main menu of the investor portal. The notary public will take down any objections received, and these will be included in the record of the AGM. So that should suffice on formalities. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to today's agenda, I'd like to take a brief look back at the past year from the Supervisory Board's perspective. As mentioned, the poly crisis has, much to our regret, turned into what feels like a permanent crisis. Hatred, hostility, and violence reached new heights around the world in 2023. There's a growing sense of helplessness. Trust is being lost. A situation in which the economy is all the more expected to maintain a solid stance and to give direction. At the same time, the economy itself, and in particular the chemical industry, is under pressure. 2023 was one of the most difficult years for our industry in recent decades. This is because geopolitical tensions combined with an ailing global economy and high energy prices, especially in Europe. At Covestro, the continuing difficult external environment again had a negative impact. Business performance in 2023 was affected by weak overall demand in our main customer industries and by lower sales volumes. Unlike in the year before, average selling prices also trended lower this time, and this combined effect led to a significant decline in sales and EBITDA. Although the group's net income improved on the bottom line, it remained in negative territory, as did the result reported in the annual financial statements under the German Commercial Code. This prompted the Board of Management to resolve not to distribute a dividend for fiscal 2023. We very much regret this and hope you will understand. But I am confident that the economic and financial situation will turn for the better. As the Board of Management has clear goals to return the company to a growth path in what is expected to remain a weak and challenging market environment. Without giving away too much detail, I would like to mention the 4 key levers. We will continue to save costs, we will invest selectively, we will optimize capacity utilization in our plants, and we will leverage efficiencies in a number of places. Ladies and gentlemen, this approach for the operating business does inspire me to be confident, but what spurs my optimism to an even greater extent is the way in which our company systematically realizes its long-term strategic goals, which coincide with the world's drive toward sustainability. As you know, Covestro has committed itself wholeheartedly to the circular economy for our own company, but also as a blueprint for the world. We see circularity as a key to climate neutrality, resource conservation, and environmental protection, the 3 main imperatives of our time. To get there, we need a fundamental system in society and in the economy. And we at Covestro contribute to this change with our own transformation by getting production and therefore the product range ready for alternative raw materials, renewable energy, and innovative recycling. The Board of Management will report on other successes and milestones in just a moment. Closely related to this, however, there are other things to report on because for us, the circular economy has a twin sister, as it were, and that is climate neutrality. Here, Covestro has now set itself another strategic goal that complements our climate strategy. We also want to become climate neutral in terms of indirect emissions from purchased raw materials and other upstream and downstream processes in the value chain. With a staged plan that will culminate in climate neutrality for the entire company by the year 2050. The CEO, Dr. Markus Seilemann, and the CFO, Christian Bayer, are standing by to give you further details in their speeches and to talk about the performance of the business and the expectations for the current year. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the agenda as listed in the invitation. We'll begin with agenda item 1, and this relates to the financial statements and reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to hand over to the CEO at Covestro AG, Dr. Markus Seilemann.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pott, and I too would like to bid you a very warm welcome. I'm very pleased to see so many of our dear shareholders again today, and I hope that you've had a good year since our last annual general meeting a year ago. The period between then and now has once again been very challenging. The difficult global situation and the many problems on our own doorstep are weighing on all of us. And, of course, our own company is no exception. In a moment, my colleague Christian Bayer and I would like to take you through Covestro's performance in 2023. Just one thing up front, though. We are persuaded and confident that Covestro will again master all difficulties in 2024 and will report on our strategic path, on the many successes on it, on our strategic path toward a circular and climate-neutral economy. Covestro is one of the pioneers in the transformation to a circular economy, and it's therefore understandable that we're also attractive to many investors, and this brings me to a topic that will be of particular interest to you, I expect. The discussions with the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, or ADNOC for short. We're conducting these discussions in a constructive, open manner in accordance with our obligations under German stock corporation law, in the interest of our company, our shareholders, and, of course, all other stakeholders as well. As is normal, the progress and outcome of such discussions depend on the ability of both parties to achieve a consensus on issues on which they have different views. We will continue to report on the outcomes of our discussions, of course, in accordance with our obligations under the European Market Abuse Regulation. Speaking of reporting, I'd now like to present an outline of how our company performed in the past fiscal year. As mentioned by Dr. Pott in his introduction, 2023 was unfortunately one of those difficult years that weighed on Covestro as well as the chemical and plastics industry as a whole. We again had to deal with a very challenging market environment in the past year. In 2023, we saw geopolitical tensions, structural challenges, and a weak global economy. The latest addition to this list is the military escalation in the Middle East. Just two observations at this point. The world is drifting further apart, a development that is often fueled by increasing extremism and fanaticism, and this is a disturbing trend that must be countered with determination. I want to assure you that we at Covestro reject political extremism and xenophobia in the strongest terms. Our employees from more than 60 countries see themselves as a large team that represents fairness, tolerance, and diversity. And we also support this conviction in society at large. And this brings me to my second observation. Let's not capitulate in the face of all these large and small problems. Let's look ahead with a healthy dose of optimism. That, of course, does not mean that the acute challenges will simply go away. After all, we at Covestro cannot influence the global economy. So for this reason, the company again had to deal with weak global demand in its key customer industries in the past year, with one exception. Our biggest sales driver, the global automotive industry, saw growth of 10%. And the market for electric mobility, for which we are developing many innovative products, expanded by as much as 30%. But the market environment will remain challenging for Covestro in 2024. Against this backdrop, we did, above all, one thing: focus on the things over which we do have control and that we can influence. We have, therefore, consistently advanced our Sustainable Future strategy, for instance. To make Covestro even more dynamic and future-oriented, we addressed 4 action areas in particular. Area number 1, efficiency. This is predominantly about the energy that our company consumes, which is, as you know, a major cost and environmental factor. We continue to work on using energy in an even more rational and environmentally compatible manner, with success. Let me give you an example. At our Dormagen site in Germany, we've modernized a plant for the production of the foam component TDI. As a result, we consume up to 80% less energy compared to conventional processes. And we're also reducing annual greenhouse gas emissions by 22,000 metric tons. By applying such measures, we were able to save 20 million euros in total. Speaking of savings, this brings me to the next action area, cutting fixed costs. We successfully reduced them by a mid-range 9-digit figure. On the other hand, we also spent money as well, investments to make future growth possible. The third action area under our strategy, we invested around 800 million euros in 2023 in research and development projects and in expanding our production, among other initiatives. Here's one example from China to illustrate this. There's a great demand in China for reused polycarbonate for cars, electronics products, and many other applications. And we responded to this by opening a plant at the Shanghai site for refining these kinds of recyclates. This is because we are increasingly focusing our portfolio on circular products, which will ideally be manufactured with zero impact on the climate. And this is in turn related to shifting our production toward non-fossil raw materials and renewable energy. We're systematically driving their expansion, and that has brought me to action area number 4, our quest for climate neutrality. And I'll come back to this in more detail later on. All I want to mention at this stage is that we've further increased the proportion of green energy in our energy mix last year from 12 to 16%. Our intention is not only to become climate neutral, but also to make ourselves less dependent on price fluctuations in the energy market. This is because High energy costs, especially in Europe, weighed considerably on our business last year. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you a brief summary of our financial performance. As I mentioned, Covestro continued to face a weak market environment and weak demand in all regions in 2023. Lower sales volumes and a decline in average selling prices led to a 20% reduction in group sales. This also impacted EBITDA, which was down by a third from the previous year. We did, however, meet the targets we had set for the year 2023. But Covestro was again unable to cover its cost of capital. Some positive news is that free operating cash flow, that is our readily available funds, increased by 68%, largely thanks to the optimization of inventories and of receivables and liabilities. Greenhouse gas emissions rose slightly, and this is partially due to a more emission-intensive energy mix for purchased power and steam in the United States and Germany last year. Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, conditions will remain difficult for us this year, and we're responding by continuing to drive forward the internal optimization of the company. This process focuses on 4 areas. Number 1, production. We are further increasing the safety and reliability of our facilities and working even more energy efficiently. 2, increase in sales volumes. We are getting even more out of our facilities in order to improve earnings. With better capacity utilization, we want to generate significant contributions to our EBITDA. Focus area number 3, higher margins. We're paying even greater attention to the needs of our customers and are concentrating on particularly lucrative solutions during this process. And last but not least, we're continuing to work on costs in all areas. We will watch expenses even more closely in all of these areas while continuing to cut back on fixed costs. All of these measures, ladies and gentlemen, are also benefiting from the advancing digitalization of our company, a process that involves the large-scale introduction of artificial intelligence. We expect this to have considerable advantages in all parts of the company. We already use AI for innovation, development. In administration, we are optimizing, for example, our liquidity planning with the help of AI, which helps us analyze huge data volumes. Through better foresight and planning, this allows our colleagues to save on interest costs, for example. In production, we already use artificial intelligence to increase production capacities. With AI, we can successfully reduce variance in polyester manufacture, thus cutting throughput times and increasing our production capacity by 5%. In addition, all employees will now receive an AI-based wizard. This personal virtual assistant helps them deal with many day-to-day tasks, from composing emails to summarizing huge data volumes. We are thus taking a further step towards aligning our employees' day-to-day work with the future. Shareholders, it is the people who make our company, our 17,500 employees around the world, a great, diverse team that works in solidarity and to which everyone makes their own special contribution. In persistently difficult times, they have all worked tirelessly and achieved excellent results. So for this, a big, heartfelt thank you from all of us on the Board of Management. We are confident that with this strong team and our powerful strategy, Covestro will continue to weather all headwinds and stay on course for a bright future. For more details on our expectations for the present year and business performance in 2023, I will now hand over to my colleague, Christian Bayer. Over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Markus. Shareholders, I'd like to join my colleagues in welcoming you to this year's annual general meeting. This is my first time, and it's a great pleasure for me to guide you through the results for fiscal 2023. After that, I will also talk about our expectations for the current year. Markus Steilemann has already said it. 2023 was another difficult year for the chemical industry. The global market environment continued to be impacted by weak demand and declining sales prices as a result. This is reflected in our results for 2023. For example, in the past fiscal year, lower sales volumes led to an overall decline in volume of 6.8% at the group level. The EMLA region performed the weakest in fiscal 2023, affected above all by the recessionary trends in Europe. Volume in the region was down around 10%. The main reason was the significant contraction of the electronics industry, which could not be offset by the slight rise in the automotive sector. The automotive industry also did well in North America, but as the construction sector shrank at the same time, our volumes declined by 5% in total in this region. The construction sector is a key factor in the performance of the APAC region. Here too, the automotive sector performed well, however. Combined with the positive development in the furniture sector, it went some way toward offsetting the decline in the construction industry. Volume in the APAC region therefore decreased by only 3% in 2023. Overall, sales amounted to 14.4 billion euros in fiscal 2023, down 20% compared with the previous year. The downturn in volume sold was also reflected in EBITDA, which amounted to around 1.1 billion euros in fiscal 2023, compared with 1.6 billion euros in the previous year. As you can see in the chart, the demand-based change in volume is a key factor driving this decline. Another relevant aspect here is the pricing gap, which is the difference between the sales and raw material price trends. Although the cost of raw materials, especially energy, dropped significantly in fiscal 2023, this was unable to offset the pressure on sales prices exerted by persistently weak global demand. But the critical question is, what are the things over which we do have control ourselves? They also include the management of our production and fixed costs. Both aspects, which have been combined here in the other category, propped up our EBITDA significantly. This shows that our actions are having an effect and our systematic focus on efficiency is paying off. Moreover, toward the end of the last year, we saw the first modestly positive signs, such as a slight improvement in demand. Our sales volumes have picked up recently in all our main customer industries, and we generated positive earnings of 132 million euros in the fourth quarter of 2023. This puts the quarter substantially ahead of the prior year quarter. Most importantly, after 6 negative quarters in succession, we saw volume development turn positive again for the first time. Let's now take a closer look at our two segments, Performance Materials and Solutions and Specialties. Due to their distinct business models, their performance was quite disparate in the past fiscal year. Let's first turn to Performance Materials. Performance Materials is our commodity business, which is our business with standard polycarbonates, standard urethane components, and the requisite base chemicals. Our focus here is above all on reliably delivering standard products at competitive cost. This segment is strongly influenced by economic cycles. Continued weak demand was thus impacted, or has therefore impacted this segment in particular compared to the group as a whole. This is why we are seeing how the global market environment caused a decline in sales and EBITDA here for the past fiscal year. In total, the segment generated EBITDA of 576 million euros, translating into a margin of 8.6%. But there are positive signs here as well. Volumes, for example, displayed positive development in the fourth quarter of 2023. Encouragingly, this trend continued into the first quarter of the current year. Nevertheless, Given our high dependence on economic developments, we are still cautious when it comes to projected price and margin trends in the first half of 2024. For the full year, we're anticipating EBITDA of between 400 and 800 million euros for the Performance Materials segment. In this context, we focus above all on key factors that we are able to shape ourselves. This includes, among other things, further improvements to the availability of our plants. This gives us control over a critical lever for meeting our targets. Let us now take a look at our Solutions and Specialties segment, where, in very close collaboration with our customers, we develop highly specialized products and come up with tailor-made innovations. Despite numerous challenges, the segment proved to be very stable in the past fiscal year. Although a drop in sales prices and volumes meant that sales were lower, we generated stable EBITDA of 817 million euros. This stability is proof of the resilience of this segment. We manage our product portfolio in conjunction with our customers in such a way that it performs well, even in challenging economic situations. Our highly attractive products, as well as rigorous efficiency and cost measures, helped us raise the segment's margin to as much as 11.2%. For 2024, we forecast that the Solutions and Specialties segment's EBITDA will range considerably above the 2023 figure. This segment will therefore remain a central pillar of Covestro's future success. Let me make this point again. Especially in a challenging global environment, our focus is above all on areas that we can influence ourselves. Firstly, systematic investment in the sustainability of our progressive production facilities. Secondly, the strengthening of the future viability of our company. And thirdly, ensuring an efficient capital structure. For us, this means that in a difficult fiscal year with low profitability, our focus is on free operating cash flow. Despite the significant drop in EBITDA, we successfully generated a positive figure of 232 million euros in 2023. We thus exceeded our own forecast, even though profitability was under particularly intense pressure in the year 2023. An important aspect here was, above all, the focused measures we took on the working capital side. And it was achieved without impacting on goods availability for our customers on the other side. To manage that balance is a challenging task, which the team mastered very well working together. Nevertheless, due to the numerous global challenges, we generated negative net income of 198 million euros for fiscal 2023 overall. In light of this result, we, the Board of Management, decided not to propose any dividend for fiscal 2023. This is in accordance with our dividend policy. Since 2020, we have linked our dividend more closely to the financial situation of the company. In principle, the intention is to distribute a dividend of 35 to 55% of net income at the group level, if this figure is positive. In fiscal 2023, our net income was again negative, despite a slight improvement compared to the previous year. Shareholders, let's now look ahead and consider our forecast for the current fiscal year. 2024 will remain challenging, especially during the first half of the year. We expect that the conditions will remain challenging and volatile, and the pressure on margins will ease off only in the second half of the year. But let me remind you that our company will focus on those levers over which we have control. We will reduce costs, leverage efficiency, and make sure our plants are reliable. In addition, we continue to invest systematically in a successful, sustainable future for Covestro. In terms of financials, we expect EBITDA of between 1.0 and 1.6 billion euros in 2024, We also anticipate that free operating cash flow will remain positive at between 0 and 300 million euros. This will result in ROCE above WACC of -7 to -2 percentage points. We are also working to further reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, which we project to range between 4.4 and 5.0 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2024. Sustainability is particularly key to our future. We are thus making significant investments both in our vision of becoming fully circular and in the climate neutrality of our company. For more about our plans in this area, I now hand the floor back to Markus Steilemann. In the next few minutes, he will give you further details on the progress we have made on the way to a circular economy and on our climate neutrality targets. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. I'm happy to carry on from here. As you know, shareholders, the circular economy is our major goal, the vision to which we have committed the company. We aim to comprehensively entrench it within our company, and we want to contribute to making circularity the guiding principle in the economy and society of the world. And we're doing this in two ways, by switching production from non-fossil raw materials, renewable energy, and innovative recycling, and by developing and manufacturing circular, climate-neutral products for the key issues of our time, for clean mobility, for the energy transition, for sustainable building and living, and many others. We reached other important milestones in this regard in 2023. I touched on this previously. Our company buys an increasing amount of energy from renewable sources. Its share is now 16%, and we're progressing with great strides. Our aim is to get to at least 25% by 2025. A proven method for this is long-term agreements with energy suppliers. In 2023, we also entered into the first major agreement of this kind in the United States. This is to buy solar power for our Baytown site in Texas, Covestro's third largest worldwide. Together with Europe and Asia, this brings us to 5 large volume supply agreements for renewable energy, and 4 more are in the planning. Recycling is another building block of our circular economy and climate strategy. According to a study from 2024, the global circular economy is only at 7%, and only 9% of global plastic waste is fully recycled. This will have to change, and we want to contribute by promoting innovative technologies, especially for chemical recycling, which is very promising, but is still in its infancy. In this process, polymers are broken down into their chemical components and subsequently reconstituted. Sounds simple, but it is, in fact, technologically demanding. We are working on several projects of this type at Covestro. Our latest successes include a new process for chemically recycling plastic waste containing polycarbonate. We began technical implementation on a pilot scale last year. This allows us to produce raw materials that are in demand from plastic waste. Less waste, more circularity. This is one method for recovering alternative raw materials. Another lever is changing the raw material base. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to move away from fossil resources such as crude oil, whose processing and use releases CO2 and accelerates climate change. And we've got to embrace raw materials from renewable resources such as biomass. In many cases, we're currently using raw material blends containing fossil and non-fossil carbon. The proportion of renewable carbon is calculated and allocated by way of mass balancing, as it's called, to the polymers created in this process. These types of mass balanced products are very popular with our customers. To advance the circular economy even further, we aim to engage in cross-sector collaboration based on strong partnerships. One example of this is the joint development of solutions in the construction sector. Hence, the Selina Group, a Polish provider of construction chemicals, uses mass-balanced MDI from Covestro to produce particularly sustainable and efficient insulation foam for windows and doors. But our dealings with Selina are more than just a supplier relationship. Our two companies have formed a strategic alliance for pooling knowledge and promoting transformation in the construction sector, which will have to become carbon neutral in the European Union by 2050. We pursue these kinds of partnerships under our circular economy strategy at all levels and at all stages of the value cycle. In this, we are driven by the conviction that this is the best way to get to innovative technologies, products, and business models. Cooperation was, and still is, the key to success in a groundbreaking new process, ladies and gentlemen. I reported on this in the past. Together with academic partners, we managed for the first time to produce the important chemical aniline, exclusively from plant biomass, that is, without any crude oil at all. An all-new complex process in which biotechnology also plays a key role. After a lot of success in the laboratory, we've now arrived at a point where we want to test it on a larger scale. To this end, we recently opened a pilot plant at the company's headquarters in Leverkusen, the first of its kind in the world. Compared to conventional technology, the new process achieved a significantly improved carbon footprint for aniline. So as you can see, shareholders, we want to manufacture our products increasingly without fossil raw materials. And this, of course, has a tremendous impact on the emission of greenhouse gases, because raw materials make up by far the largest part of the emissions included in our climate footprint. And these kinds of emissions are part of Scope 3, as it's called, one of 3 internationally recognized categories which comprises greenhouse gases affecting companies indirectly in upstream and downstream processes, for example, through transportation, business travel, waste travel, and, as I've just mentioned, in purchased raw materials, which already come with a carbon footprint. We now aim to become climate neutral in this Scope 3 as well, and to this end we've set ourselves an ambitious target, which completes our climate neutrality strategy. And now let me introduce this to you. You may remember, shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, in a first step in 2022, we announced targets and actions to make Covestro climate neutral at the operational level. This target, which we aim to achieve by 2035, applies to what we call Scope 1 and Scope 2. Scope 1 covers all direct emissions coming from our own production facilities. Scope 2 is for the energy that we purchase. This covers the indirect emissions that arise in the production of these sources of energy and are allocated to us. And now we will also have Scope 3, which contributes the lion's share of emissions. All in all, our company is intended to become completely climate neutral by 2050. We have carefully planned the long road up to the middle of the century and set ourselves clear targets. One major milestone is scheduled for 2035, which is just 11 years from now. By then, we aim to reduce Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions by 10 million metric tons net compared to our base year of 2021. And this corresponds to a reduction by 30% and includes some of the growth-related emissions projected up to 2035. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not only clear targets for Scope 3, though, we also have clear ideas of how we intend to meet them. Let's take a look at 4 levers that will contribute to our meeting these ambitious targets. The first lever we use is applied at the level of suppliers. If they reduce their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, that will benefit our Scope 3 numbers. And secondly, we are investing in new processes for alternative and recycled raw materials, our MAKE projects. and this includes platform technology for innovative recycling and of foam precursors. The first step we want to take is to chemically recover the components of flexible foam in mattresses. We're also planning to drive profitable sales of products based on alternative raw materials, and this is complemented by a large number of supporting measures to reach the Scope 3 targets. They include recycling more of our own waste so that less of it is incinerated and emissions are lowered accordingly. Step by step, we are therefore implementing our master plan for climate neutrality and the circular economy, and we've made further progress on this path so far this year in terms of raw materials, energy products, and collaboration. Let me tell you now about just a couple highlights. We made an early start in January when we announced an important agreement with the raw material producer Encina. From 2027 on, this company, which is based in the US, will supply us with raw materials recovered from recycled used plastics on a long-term basis. We will then use them to make TDI and MDI, the components of flexible and rigid polyurethane foam. Another strategic agreement followed in February, this time with the German energy company RWE. It will supply power and guarantees of origin from offshore wind turbines in the North Sea to our Belgian site in Antwerp from 2026 onward. This will allow us to cover as much as 60% of the plant's energy demand from renewables. So that's brand new news in terms of shifting our production to circular economy and climate neutrality, but we've also got news about corresponding products. For example, for our customer Henkel, we provide specific components for adhesives made from raw materials containing a certain percentage of biomass. In turn, Henkel uses these components to manufacture adhesives for wooden components in buildings. In this way, we are jointly driving the transformation of the construction industry towards sustainability. I'd like to close off now, if I may, with another current example from our expanding range of sustainable products. Different sector, different customer. I'm now talking about the technology group, ABB, and the area of application is electrical engineering, where we supply the company with polycarbonate made from recycled, mass-balanced organic waste. This is now being used for the first time in the manufacture of switches, connectors, and multimedia outlets. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope Christian Bayer and I have been able to give you some idea of where our company stands, what challenge it has to overcome, and what opportunities lie ahead. Here's a brief summary, if I may. In my opinion, Covestro's position is absolutely fit for the future in terms of both strategy and operations. Strategically, we are staying on course for the circular economy, the major worldwide project for the 21st century. This goes hand in hand with orienting the entire company toward climate neutrality. This helps not only us, but also our customers in many key sectors. And I'm sure it will ultimately also find its way into products that will make your life better and more sustainable, dear shareholders. From an operational point of view, we are continuing to work on improving our performance and competitive position. I'm sure you have an idea by now of the many levers and controls at our disposal in this context. In summary, this means that we are continuing systematically to implement our corporate strategy, the right mix to navigate Covestro safely through choppy waters and to reach the promising goals on the horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will support our company on this journey. And this journey is definitely worthwhile, and Covestro is already among the shapers and winners of the world as a brighter place. So, on behalf of the entire Board of Management, I'd like to say thank you for your attention. And now I will hand the floor back to the Chairman of our Supervisory Board, Dr. Richard Pott.
Thank you for following our annual general meeting. Did you miss anything? You can find all important details on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. We'll respond as fast as we can. Until next time.